Wisp Sports Radio, the voice of women in sport.
Hello and thank you for downloading The Horse Show here on Wisp Sports. This is Season 4, Episode 21, and I'm Chris Stafford. And you can join in the conversation at any time by following us on social media at Wisp Sports. Past weekend, I attended the Ocala Jockey Club 3-day event in Ocala, Florida. And I have to say, we had some pretty brisk weather for the few days I was there, which was unseasonable for Ocala in November. But despite the cool temperatures, we had a good crowd there, especially on the Saturday, when some of the divisions did their cross-country. And I was paying a particular attention to the CCI 4-star short competition, which Marilyn Little won with RS Scandalous. And I spoke to Marilyn after the competition to get her reaction to the mare's performance this weekend. And I also spoke to Lucinda Green, who was at the event, to get her impressions of the competition. And she will also share her thoughts on the future of the sport. Should we stay in the Olympic Games? That's all coming up later in the podcast. And my first guest is Sarah Kozenblick-Murphy, who rode Rubens Dessert to 4th place in the CCI 4-star short. She was second after dressage on a score of 32.5 and clear show jumping, but they added some time penalties to finishing 4th place. And it was quite a remarkable performance and comeback for Sarah and the horse. The horse had undergone colic surgery earlier this year, and Sarah had recovered from a broken back and neck.
Yeah, it was a bit of a big ask to be here this weekend, but I wanted to have a kind of a year goal thing to have, and it wouldn't have been as big of an ask if he hadn't had to have colic surgery in April. So my original plan, I broke my back and my neck in August of 2018, and that took 6 months just because of the bone graft. It takes a while, but 6 months until I was cleared to ride. I did my first event back with him in March. Did a preliminary, it was great. Did a intermediate in April, and then a week later, he's never sick. He freakily colicked and needed to have surgery. So that just put me back because I didn't have anything other than him, really. I had some nice young horses, and I ended up being able to slowly buy a horse called Devil Munchkin, but I didn't know him very well. So that was a little bit hard when you're recovering from an injury like this, to be on horses that you don't really know, and ride at a proper level is a bit hard, although I did get to do some good tracks with him. Kermit's a lovely horse. But it really is special to me to have this horse. My goal once I sort of was listening to him and thinking what he could do, he started jumping in August, and he's good at telling you how he feels, and he's been wanting to be back in work, but it's like having a C-section, so I've never had one, but that's what I'm told. And so, sometimes he's already a bit of a careful jumper. So little things like yesterday I didn't wear a stud girth because he doesn't like the pressure now after the surgery of where the stud girth goes. There's just little things like that, So he just started to feel more like himself jumping-wise about 3 weeks ago. I did enter this competition thinking, well, I might just try and do dressage and show jumping, and I'll just go ahead and do that and see how I feel. But to be honest, a couple weeks, I took him to Tampa jumping last week, and he felt very, very good. And then he obviously jumped lights out yesterday, more so even in the warm-up they did in the ring, but he jumped great in the ring too. And then I just thought, bugger it, like we can go ahead and we've got enough experience. Let's go ahead and knock the rust off a little bit, So that's what we did. And I always had in mind that I'd pull up if he felt too tired. I knew he was going to be a little tired, but if he felt too tired, I'd just pull up was my plan.
So talk us through then the dressage, show jumping. I mean, each phase went then according to the plan for the whole weekend.
Yeah, it did, which is a miracle. But best laid plans and all. But his dressage test is very good, but I expected that he can be even better. he's a wonderful horse on the flat. He's very well trained by Mickey Kuchta before me, and he's a wonderful horse to ride on the flat. And also he's a performer, so he might be a bit of a pain in the ass at a preliminary horse trials, but he would never do it if there's live stream. So he's spooky, and he's a bit of a French like spooky horse, but he would never doesn't want to embarrass himself. He knows when there's, like all good horses, he knows when it matters.
And with a good result under their belt for this season, I wondered what the plans would be for them as they look to 2020.
I'm trying not to make any plans, but to be honest with you, I have my sights on possibly going to Tattersall's in May, and the reason that I'm thinking that is a lot of things. I think it'd be a nice track for him. I went to see it last year when my friend Will Coleman was riding there. It's a hometown event for my husband as well, so his family is not even 10 minutes from Tats, and so I just thought it'd be kind of fun. I thought the horse would be very competitive there. He's good dressage, good show jumping, that matters at Tats. He's a brave cross-country horse, and by then I'll have him fit and strong enough that I can be fast enough. Right. So I just kind of wanted to go somewhere that, at this stage of my riding career, I always want to show up at the 5 stars and things, but I also really, thank you, Jenny. But I also really want to, go and be competitive at events I've wanted to ride at. So if I have the opportunity, I've kind of learned that if I have the opportunity to do something and I think I'm going to be competitive, then I want to just scrape the money together and go. Yeah. And then maybe plan on trying to do the new 5-star at Fairhill in the fall. Okay. That's sort of what I was thinking.
And with this being the third running of the Ocala Horse Trials, I put it to Sarah that despite the unseasonal cold temperatures during the weekend, this is still a super event on a lovely property.
It is a lovely event, and honestly, I know everyone's been moaning about the weather, especially the foreigners, because they came over here for the Florida weather. But I honestly thought it was perfect eventing weather. I like it. I mean, thank goodness we got the rain. The ground feels amazing. Some of the best ground I've ridden on all year. I mean, besides like Bromont. And to me, I like it when it's raining. I like it when it's cooler. It factored in one of the decisions on running Rubens today was the temperature. If it had been a hot day, I probably wouldn't have done it.
Okay, well done. Lovely weekend for you then,
yes,
Sarah.
Thank you very much, Chris. Appreciate it.
And Marilyn Little won the CCI 4-star short division with RF Scandalous, finishing on a score of 41.2. They had a dressage of 24.4, which put them in a convincing lead, to which they added a lovely clear show jumping round. So I put it to Marilyn that after the mare's setback last year, she really looked like she was back in the groove and meant business again.
Well, she's when she does get to come to the party, she is always in the groove. She's just a wonderful partner and a wonderful competitor. So it's so much fun to be here with her this weekend. Just love every minute riding her. Feel very, very blessed to have that opportunity, and her owners were here this weekend, so that was a ton of fun, and it's been a long road to bring her back. Everyone's been very patient, and the teamwork has been incredible, so this is a special weekend for a lot of reasons. I wasn't very pleased with the test because I left so much on the table, and she was very, very fresh when she went in, which you can't blame her for that. And I mean, I was excited too, and we're probably feeding off of each other a little bit, but she could have easily been quite a few points lower. All horses have their day, and she's brilliant in that arena. So I need to capitalize on it. But we were all very excited on the first day. So not our best, but still very good.
Having watched the mare show jump and then go cross country, where she looked absolutely fabulous, really getting into a lovely rhythm and looking all business.
She is very businesslike. She's a funny horse. She has her moments. The warm-up area, she's notorious for being a bit atomic in the warm-up area or heading to the arena. And as a younger horse, she would carry that into the arena. But these days, she then she puts on her suit and she walks into the arena, and she is all business, and she's there to do a job. And she truly understands that this is a game, and she likes to play it.
And it's been quite a journey for Marilyn to get the mare back on track after the setback that she had last year, just before the World Equestrian Games. So I asked her what it took to get the mare back to fitness.
Well, those were very dark days. She was injured. She had a soft tissue injury just the day before she was meant to ship to the World Championship venue in Tryon. And we did a scan, and we realized that if there was no way she could compete and be viable, and it was not in her best interest. So we withdrew, and Will took our spot, and the best thing I could do at that point was to really understand the injury. So we put her on the truck, got her a private lorry to take her down to Dr. Haynes Stevens in Wellington, Florida. Haynes has worked with her for many years, knows her very well, loves the horse. His clinic is at a farm, so that she knows well, and we've trained there a bit. So it was ideal, and he really was instrumental in getting the injury going in the right direction, because certainly you could just rest them and put them in the field and let nature take its course. But realistically, when she came back, that injury needed help to set it going in the right direction in the beginning, because this is such a hard sport. They can't just be sound to return to work. They've got to be absolutely the best they can possibly be. So she was jumping by March. She was jumping small jumps. She was in work since last January, jumping small jumps by March. She really could have started competing in the summer. And I spoke with the owners and spoke with Eric DeVander, and everyone was very much agreed that later fall was actually ideal. We just keep training and focusing on her and putting more distance between the initial injury and her return to competition, so she wasn't going to be in any pressure. And in hindsight, I'm so glad that we did. I feel very good about it. I don't mind taking her out cross country. Haynes came up and I wanted a final check off, and I said, you got to fly up here before she came to this event. I said, I need you to just put eyes on her again. Tell me that you think she's ready, or if not. And he said, she looks great. Go enjoy her and go do what you love. And she was so happy to be here, and she just gave me a brilliant ride out there cross country, and I couldn't be happier with the way she went.
So was that one of the first calls you made to him when we made it?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I called him, and I sent him a video clip that one of the owners had, and he's overjoyed. I mean, he's gone above and beyond for this horse and for me, and I'm so grateful.
Where did she run before this then, Marilyn? What did you do?
Well, I did 2 prelim events. Unfortunately, I didn't really take that into account. It's a bit hard to find intermediate and advanced later on in the season, because most people are, they're going to Fair Hill and whatnot. So I had 2 prelims at Morven Park and Waradaka to prepare for, and it got her out and knocks a bit of the rust off, but nothing really compares to running down to a set of corners or jumping into a big water. And I mean, this level is meant to be imposing, and Clayton did just that. It was a tough enough track with some big questions, and this is the place where I broke my foot on those exact corners. And as I was walking the course, I saw them, and I thought, you know what, did it have to be this way? But it's a good thing. I got it. As I was coming up to him, I thought, this is going to work. And she just was straight as an arrow. She's just brilliant. And I wasn't as prepared as I could have been coming in here from a cross-country standpoint. But I trusted that she knows what she's doing, and she wants it really badly.
And as I said, she did look as if she was really enjoying herself cross-country. So it was a bit of a surprise that she had the time that she did. So she finished on a score of 41.2.
Actually, I was really moving along quite well, and I was doing the lower numbers in the combinations. I took all the direct routes, but you have to remember that hundreds of horses ran across those tight turns, and it is a very twisty, turny course out there with a lot of hairpin turns, and you've had a lot of riders wanting to win, and they've been right up on the ropes, so the footing is really churned there. And my plan was always to get out and walk the course this morning after everyone ran yesterday, to see what it looked like, because it's definitely evolved from a few days ago. And I knew that I was not going to be able to be on the ropes, that I was going to have to take a wider track, maybe pick up on some different lines and different approaches to the fly fences and to the combinations. You saw my line into the last water, my line into the corners, they're all a little different. And I was definitely off of the lines at the fly fences just to keep her on a bit better footing, because I knew I wanted to gallop her, and I wanted to come away from this weekend feeling like I really knew what I had. But I didn't see. At the same time, I'm not going to compromise her and send her across footing that's when there's a better option, and it was just going to take a little more time. It is a choice.
So what did this tell you then, not just about where you are with her fitness, but also for yourself and your own eventing program?
There's a few cross-country rounds that stand out in my life as just absolute pure pleasure, and this was one of them. For a lot of reasons, it's obviously a sentimental weekend for me, but she reminds me regularly that she is, I think she is one of the best horses in the world, and she's a great partner, and she gives 150%. And I knew that coming in, but sometimes you think, oh gosh, it's been a long time, and she's telling me she's still here, and she's as good as she's ever been, and she's a great competitor, and she reminds me of why I love this so much. So I'm very lucky, and I'm really looking forward to whatever next year holds. I hope to go to Kentucky with her. It'd be so great to take her back there. And we're just, things are only getting better with her.
So with that spring season in mind, what did Marilyn have planned for her now?
Well, she'll go to Wellington. She'll do some dressage, do some show jumping, but I want to stay out, and I only have one horse. I really need another horse or two very badly. But I need to organize the financial side of that. I need some help to make that happen. And it would be fantastic for me, but it would also really help give her some support so that I could stay, a bit more in the game and not have to have so much pressure to come in on one horse these days. Because I know what it's like to have a lot of I've had that, and it's such an advantage. But so I'll be running a few events with her. One or two slow ones just for training to go out at the beginning of next year, get her out and do some dressage shows, and then probably go to a short 4-star, maybe Stable View or the Fork, something as a prep so that I have a good idea. But not a lot of pressure leading up to Kentucky. I was very judicious last year leading up to Kentucky. I don't like to run the horses a lot. I think that when they know their job, I don't need to put that many miles on my trailer. Just let them come and do their job, and we'll choose wisely. But she'll tell us. She always has.
And as always, Marilyn runs her eventing program alongside her show jumping program. So I asked what was in store for her this winter.
Well, this is really the beginning of the season Wellington starts in January, so the pre-circuit shows are starting. My horses are shipping down this week. My journey down to this event in Ocala came through the Duke Horse Show, where I jumped Clearwater last weekend, Karen O'Connor's show jumper. He won the Grand Prix on Saturday night. Sunday morning we were on the way down here for Scandalous to do this week. So it all goes hand in hand in my stable. It's just a different game games on horses, and I'm lucky to have them because it does help keep me sharp. But as Kentucky draws close, obviously it's going at the same time as Wellington. So you have to have a very good plan, a good team in place to help make it all work. We have to do the things that Scandalous needs, but at the same time, it's full speed ahead for me from January until March with the jumpers.
So all those people that were whispering in the shadows that, Marilyn's giving up eventing and going to focus on show jumping, none of that is true. You've got obviously a horse with a mission, and you want to get back with some other horses too.
I think if you have something out there in the stable like Scandalous, as long as she's around, I'll wake up any day, anywhere, and I'll drive 1 million miles to ride her. Who wouldn't? She's the horse of a lifetime. And if she's on the table, then so am I. If she's not, yes, it is hard to do two sports, but I do love it, and I do this because I'm passionate about it. I don't do this for a living. The eventing, I just love the sport, and I love that horse. So however I can enjoy it with her for as long as possible, that's what I want to do.
And finally, as I mentioned earlier, Lucinda Green was there doing the commentary for the live stream. And I sat down with her after the event to get her impressions of the cross-country riding, particularly because, as many of you know, she is often in the US giving clinics.
Yeah, I come over here a lot, and I go every year to Kentucky and for the 5-star and Fair Hills for the 4-star, and I watch the riding and I watch a lot of techniques, I suppose you could say, and I'm very impressed by what I've seen this weekend, right through from we watched every single 2-star because we were commentating amidst blisteringly cold weather on the 2-star. We were actually sat outside to do the live stream, and I was well impressed by what I was seeing. I really felt across the board everybody has understood the need to sit, if you like it, in the dressage seat in those last few strides before a fence. Sit up, be ready for trouble in that right balance. I didn't see anybody who didn't do that, except for possibly one or two, but I'm not going to publicise their names. But I'm really happy with what I'm seeing, and it's not because I want America to jump up and beat the world, but I do want America to come back into the top level that it was in when we were competing back in a long time ago. America was like Germany are now. They were absolutely unbeatable under the guidance of Jack Le Goff. And it goes in cycles, success, we know that. And they've cycled through that great success and had considerable success with Mark Phillips, and the cycle started to go down. And I want to help it come back up again, because the more major countries we have at the top end, the more I feel we'll be able to control our sport, which is being a little bit taken. The whole ethos of eventing is cross-country, and that's been taken at the Olympic Games and put down a grade. The dressage and the show jumping remaining at 5-star level, and there'll be 2 show jumpings in the Olympic Games, 2 rounds, one to account for the individual medal, and the cross-country has gone back to a 4-star level. And this is how the World Games was and will be for the foreseeable future. And I find that really, really sad, because the reason we do eventing is the cross-country. If we wanted to be a show jumper or a dressage rider, we've got our own sport, we can go and do that. But cross-country is the absolute heartbeat of this sport. And I'm really sad when I see that sort of thing happen. And it's soon going to be, in 10 years' time, maybe a really good show jumping and dressage rider who just can do an exhibition cross-country round that wins a gold medal in the Olympic Games, if indeed we stay in the Olympic Games that long. And it's my hope that we get thrown out, which I know causes all sorts of people to say, but we won't get any money. And I think, we won't. None of us will get any money. And a lot of people will lose a wage, and it will be a bit like leaving the European Union. It's going to hurt. But I think we need to be in control of our own sport. I'm very concerned that we have to cow and tow and bow to the Olympic demands, and the sport is not being given any favours by those demands.
We've talked about this a few times, haven't we, about how, the tail is wagging the dog in a way, that we keep bending and breaking the sport to shape it to the demands of the IOC, the Olympic movement.
Very well described.
Is this for the better? Again, we come back to this because over the years we keep moving the goalposts, don't we? And so you mentioned there the 2 show jumping rounds at Tokyo next year.
Yeah. Well, we know why, and the reason, for those of you that aren't sure, is because you can't, in Olympic rulings, award two medals, for the same performance. Well, we always used to. But just recently we haven't been able to. So in Sydney they upped with 2 totally different competitions. A whole 3-day event for the team and then a whole 3-day event for the individuals, which meant that everybody had to have a second horse of Olympic level. And of course that immediately gave access to people who had a lot more wherewithal than others to win an individual. So that wasn't considered any good. So then up comes, I suppose it was Athens next, was it? With, we'll have 2 show jumping rounds, and that will allow the Olympic ruling to be adhered to, because it's not a completely similar event. We've added a show jumping round where they couldn't add a cross-country round. Thank God they didn't add another dressage test, so let's be glad it was a show jumping round. But you're so right, it's not what it's all about. And I mind like anything, because I feel the cross-country skill is so spectacular and special, and I do feel, I'm afraid, that you can be a 4-star rider and still not be a 5-star rider. It's a special skill to ride across country at 5-star level and continuously and keep that horse's confidence and keep his ego and keep everything right for the challenge. And I've seen a lot of people who get away with 4-star who are not going to make it at 5-star, and this is what's going to win an Olympic medal, and that's going to be really sad.
Just want to go back to your point about the American style of riding and how they are getting a little bit more defensive, sitting up a little bit more, and you've had a lot of influence over that.
But the reason why you need to sit up, and if you like it, and the best way to describe the approach to a jump is dressage seat in short stirrups. And that doesn't mean grinding away with your bottom, but nor does dressage mean grinding away with your bottom. It just means your 2 seat bones are plugged into your saddle and your shoulders are above your hips and you're in a position that is ready for trouble. And the whole point about cross country, in my view, is the speed of your reactions and the speed of your horse's reactions. You do not know when trouble is coming. You have to expect trouble at every second. If you knew when trouble was coming, everybody would be very good riders. It's being able to respond and react instantly to something that happens that you weren't expecting. That is very, very hard to do from any position other than the dressage seat, because that is where you're in control of the balance and the power of the horse. Otherwise they do dressage like a steeplechase jockey. They don't, because sitting up gives you the best possible chance of being in control of the 2 things you most need in a cross-country course: power and balance.
And of course the other aspect of cross-country riding is the safety, and this is something that I put to Lucinda.
From the early 90s we started this terrible death roll, and I think I've actually run out now, because there's run out of counting now, because there's been about 5 this year, and you've had 2 in practice, and we've had 1 over a hay bale in a field. Tragic, absolutely tragic. But I think it's sort of hideously near the 80 mark now, the total in 26 years. Before that, it didn't happen. And I don't think it's just the fact that the whole world knows what's happening now at the press of a button. It really didn't happen. And I think one of the real good reasons is that the fences are built now with such security and such foundation that you could actually live in them. They do not move a single centimetre when you hit them, and that creates the rotational fall. It doesn't take a great brain to realise that if you hit something that doesn't give at all, you're going to flick over it in a neat rotation, and it's underneath that you might easily not get away with your life. Whereas in the good old days, we fell all over the flipping place, but they all fell to the side. They fell properly, and it hurt, and you broke your leg possibly, and things maybe weren't so good, but they were never fatal. And so I think along has come the frangible pin and the Mims pin and everything else to make it frangible, and when you're not sure if a horse is going to hit a fence, so you put a whole layer of brush on the top of it. So you're trying to create what we had before, but the post hole digger came in. You know, if we maybe just put the uprights in with a hand instead of a post hole digger, or put them in less far and have them a little bit less solid. But this brings me to that sad sort of fact that people's livelihoods are at stake as well as riders' lives. A course builder isn't going to get a job if his course doesn't stand up to muster. If he has to stop the competition to mend a fence, he's not going to be asked back. So he digs his posts in really, really well so that his fence doesn't break. But in the good old days, every fence, I think, had a certain frangibility about it, because the uprights weren't in very strong, and the tables were the first ones that caused the fatalities. And the tables are railway ties stuck straight into the ground in a spread to create the table, and I think they probably didn't give even half a centimetre. But I've seen it with my own eyes. I've seen 3 times a fence move with a person that I was training, and each time I thought that's not good, and each time the somersault has just moved to the side and they haven't come down on top of the rider. And I think that has a lot to do with it. I think the fact that the dressage and the show jumping have become ever more important, which is why I bang on about trying to get show jumping more, cross-country more influential. And you're finding, and there is a swing away from this, I detect now, but there has been a huge swing towards warm bloods. And warm bloods nowadays have got a lot more thoroughbred in them, but earlier on they had rather less, and they don't think as quickly. Not all of them. You can't say that about every horse. There's some brilliant warm bloods out there. But the thoroughbred, on the whole, is a very sharp thinker. Now, I just had a father and mother of a fall at Houghton at the end of May on an Australian thoroughbred who simply didn't think quickly at all. He just cantered straight into a fence. So there are exceptions, and there are exceptions. There are exceptionally quick-thinking warm bloods, and there's exceptionally slow-thinking thoroughbreds. But on the whole, the thoroughbred is bred to gallop. From the desert, he came to the races in 1700, and he's bred to go fast, so he's bred to think quickly, because if he didn't think quickly at gallop, he's a goner. Whereas the warm bloods come from the carriage horses, they never went out of trot, except, I believe, the male carriages went a bit faster, but otherwise they turned the carriage over and all the people would fall out. So they haven't learnt the speed of thought that the thoroughbred has, and I think that has a certain amount to do with the accidents as well as the formation of the fences.
Where do you think we are then in terms of the evolution of cross-country course design? I know you don't have a crystal ball, but pretend that you did and that somebody out there is listening to what you say.
I am glad, even though I tried to become a course designer and then discovered I was too old and I get sacked almost before I'd qualified. I'm quite glad I haven't become one, because I think the onus on the course designers is absolutely enormous. To make it tough enough to test the best and not annihilate the rest is what it's all about. And Mark Phillips boldly produced a championship 5-star course at Burghley that did annihilate the rest. And unfortunately at Burghley there is quite a lot of the rest, because the good boys and girls have gone to the European or the World or the Olympics or whatever it is that September of that year. So you're not with quite the same 80 competitors as you are at badminton. And I imagine he suffered a lot for that, because he did only get a third round, and that's completely acceptable in 1902 where I come from. But nowadays it's not acceptable. There were one or two things I would possibly have done differently, but hell, that's in hindsight. We're all very good course designers in hindsight. He had the courage to do it, and we've got to get better. And the good riders showed that it was perfectly acceptable as a course, and Pippa was on a young horse and rode out of her skin, and cross country was never her first thing. She was a very, very good dressage rider and show jumping rider, and she's come to cross country genius quite late in life, and she got it done. So I do think that they tend to be so beautifully manicured, the fences, not just in this country, that you can invite quite a bad jump and they can get away with it. And by that I mean quite a lot of the fences here were shaped like little mini roofs. So if you hit the front of them, you're going to slide up before you get to the top. And with a bit of luck, you can get your legs out of the way, which is good. We don't want horses falling. But as soon as you don't get a face of a fence that makes you have to ride properly, you lose that skill. And just to emphasise what I mean, Michael Young went to Strego one year. It was a very, very good Polish event, and goes to 4-star. And in the bushes, he found a whole load of the old fences, and he bought them all and had them transported back across Europe to Germany. And the reason he did it is because they were proper good upright fences. They weren't all slopey this way and that way. And he wanted to train his horses over decent fences that if they didn't pick their feet up, it jolly well hurt them. And a horse has got to learn that he can't take liberties. And these fences allow a horse to get away with not really setting himself up well and jumping well. Well, that means that the rider doesn't have to do it for him, because the horse is able to get away with it. So it's a little bit tricky, because none of us want horses to fall. We certainly don't want anybody hurt. But if you keep lightening up the face of every fence, you lose the skill to ride a horse when you have to slow down and ride it together. So you end up getting too many fast rounds inside the time. And it's all the same thing with brush. You think, oh, it's a bit of a difficult face, this, I'll just add some brush to it. And in that way, you possibly avoid the falls, which is good. But what we need to do is teach people to ride those fences when they're not fluffed up with brush or a nice slopey front. And that is a difficult problem, because you've got bad people that don't have a lot of experience trying to ride a higher level than they're ready for. And you can't, however much you put qualifications in, you can't get rid of some of the people that shouldn't be there. So you have to build for them instead.
I also asked Lucinda about the number of skinnies and acute angles and offset corners that we get in the sport today.
Yes, what else can they do? They don't want the horse to fall, they want them to run out. And Eric Winter at badminton the last couple of years hasn't worried so much with skinnies, done massive angles and serious angles. On an angle, you can fall over very easily on an angle, because if you hit a fence full on, you can get away with much more than if you hit it at an angle. It'll tip you over much easier. But at least you won't get a somersault on an angle. And that has something to be said for it.
Just going back to your point about the Olympics, I know this is, it's a big change of direction for the sport if that was to happen. If we were to come out of the Olympic Games, a lot of motivation would be different, but the World Championships would be our Olympic Games then.
And that's what they are for many sports that aren't in the Olympic Games. And I don't see anything wrong with that, but I know that there are certain areas, and our lottery funding is one of them, and I expect many other countries' lottery funding, where the funding will go because the lottery funding is wound up in the Olympic Games. And that is the way it most likely will be for most countries. But to a degree, it is never going to be a level playing field, this sport, but it'll be the same for everybody. Everybody's country will stop giving them a little bit here or a little bit there, if indeed they do, because it's not an Olympic sport anymore. So yes, there's a real fear about us coming out of the Olympics, but I feel a lot of it is instigated around people whose living is derived from such things as lottery funding. They get a wage from it in order to get whatever it is working. So I think there is a lot of anti-leaving the Olympics. And I know Pippa's very pro staying in the Olympics, but she says, my postman knows what our sport is purely because of the Olympics. And she's not wrong. You can get a lot more emphasis on your sport because people just watch whatever's in front of them during Olympic fever. But I still can't stand the way the sport is being taken away from its derivatives, its foundations, which is the cross-country.
So there you have it, Lucinda's thoughts on the weekend's competition there at the Ocala Horse Trials, and also the future of the sport. Do we belong in the Olympic movement? And if you would like to share your thoughts on this topic, you can do so via social media. Just look for Wisp Sports. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter and LinkedIn. And you can also drop us a line to info@wispsports.com. My thanks again to our guests this week at the Ocala Horse Trials, Sarah Cousin-Plink-Murphy, Marilyn Little and Lucinda Green. And despite the chilly weather down there in Ocala, I thoroughly enjoyed being there and enjoying a lovely event on a beautiful property. I hope that competition stays on the calendar. So until the next time, thank you for listening and to helping us turn up the volume on women's sports.